So you may be asking, why would I get a 6-liter turbo diesel Powerstroke? You know, haven't I heard all the horror stories about them? For people that don't know or who are new to the channel, I did pick up a 6-liter crew cab long bed 4x4 automatic transmission 6-liter Powerstroke truck. And I mean, so far it's been great. I've had it for a few days now. I've just been driving it around town. It's super comfortable. It's way better than the Cummins as far as ride quality goes. But I'm going to go a little bit more into detail as to why I got the 6-liter Powerstroke turbo diesel, you know, as opposed to like a 7.3. You know, 6.4 is kind of self-explanatory, you know, or why I didn't get like a 6.7 or something. So first off, you know, why a 6.0, why not a 7.3? And, you know, the main reason being is that the 7.3 hasn't been made since early 2003. As far as like the model year goes, 2002, 2003 were the last 7.3 Super Duties that Ford produced. And just because of that, you know, that's like 16 or 15-year-old trucks at the newest, the absolute newest you can get. So there's just not as many of them around anymore. A lot of these trucks have been worked hard. You know, they have the reputation of being, you know, the unkillable workhorse. And I think some people have taken that to the unfortunately, the extreme and thing, you know, I have a 7.3, I don't have to maintain it, you know, let that oil go 10,000 miles or whatnot. And I mean, you can find clean 7.3s, but you will pay for it. Those people, they know what they have. They know the 7.3 hasn't been made in a very long time, and they want top dollar for their truck. So that's one reason why I didn't get the 7.3, although I was looking for a 7.3, and if one had popped up, I would have bought it. The other thing is the automatic transmissions on those guys. The 7.3, I believe the transmission is the 4R100, and from what I've been reading, those transmissions are kind of weak. They, you know, they're typically good for about 150,000 miles, 200,000 miles or so, and you know, you got to replace them. The 5R110, which comes on the 6 liters, from what I've been reading, is a very strong, robust transmission. My transmission shifts good, no problems. The fluid's clean, so I don't foresee myself having any issues with that. So I mean, that's really the only reason I didn't go with the 7.3. There are a few, you know, creature comforts and, you know, minor updates to the interior that the 6.0 has that the 7.3, you know, just shows its age with. The 7.3 coming out in 1999. And while the interior is really similar, the you know, my truck has a lot of these nice little creature comforts. Let me show you a few things here. So it has things, you know, like the automatic light sensor, so I don't have to mess with that. You know, light comes on, lights go out as needed. It's got this nice digital climate control unit that's really nice. I can just throw it on auto, and it'll set the temp to whatever temp I want. I don't know about the 7.3s, but mine does have this power point, which is nice. It's an always on cigarette lighter power point for me to charge my phone. This radio is just okay. The steering wheel controls are pretty nice, but no Bluetooth. I think it does have an auxiliary button, but I think I have to take the radio out and add something on there for that. Oh yeah, it does have this OEM brake controller, so pretty basic stuff. Just increase your or decrease your gain, hit this button for max braking. Awesome. And another thing about the 7.3s that I wasn't really a fan of, although I suppose it doesn't really matter all that much, is the front suspension system on a 7.3 and the 03, 04, 6.0s has a leaf spring style. Now my truck is an 06, so it has the coil spring setup, and you know, everywhere I've read, they just say that that's a much smoother setup. That's actually the setup that's I believe on the current Super Duties. I know for sure it's on the 6.7 generation Super Duties from like 11 to 15 or 16 or what have you. So I mean, that's a very modern suspension setup on this truck, and you know, I can tell it runs really well on the highway. It's a little stiff in the back because it's an F350, so unloaded the back is kind of bouncy, but you know, when it's loaded down, it'll ride like a dream. You know, can't really complain about that. The little exterior things that I like about this truck is the headlights, the bumper, the '05 front end essentially. I just think it looks like a modern front end, and I know you can convert them on the 7.3s, but that's money, and this just came with it, so that's all cool. So another truck I could have, I suppose, potentially been looking at was the 6.4 Super Duties. I believe they made that from like '08 to 2010, but as you can tell from the really short run of those trucks, they were just problematic. Everything I've read about them just seems to indicate that they're 150 to like roughly 200 mile truck, or 200,000 mile truck, before you have to replace the engine or just get rid of it. So I mean, I wasn't really a fan of that. I know you can, I guess, still bulletproof them to a degree, but I mean, just the really short run period of them, the horror stories, and especially that was the first generation, I believe, to have the DPF, the diesel particulate filter. I don't think they had diesel exhaust fluid requirements at that point, but I've heard the DPF really killed those trucks. Just having to dump all that diesel into the system to get that exhaust gas really hot to burn out that crud in the filter. That's just not good for those trucks. I guess you can delete them. You can head stud them and delete them, and I suppose you'll have a good decent truck. But in addition to being a little bit more problematic, they are still a newer truck, and people still haven't quite come down on the price yet. Although I did find a few trucks somewhat in my price range, but nah, didn't really want them. So why not get a 6.7? I mean, essentially, the early 6.7s I heard had some problems. Maybe stay away from them. But essentially, it really came down to they're just out of my budget. Those are under 10-year-old trucks, and they're still in the 15,000 to perhaps 20,000 range, if you're lucky to find them. Nice trucks, good power, but not for me. So why did I get a 6.0 Powerstroke as opposed to like a Cummins or a Duramax, you might ask? And kind of like the 6.7, it really just comes down to price. The Duramax guys don't want to sell their truck for cheap. I kind of browsed a little bit, and like early 2000s Duramaxes are still in the teens as far as cash goes. And same with the Cummins. One other thing about the Cummins is that the auto transmissions on those trucks, at least up to the 3rd gen, are pretty garbage. In the mileage range I would have to be looking for, I can't buy a truck with under 100,000 miles. That's just way too expensive. So these higher mileage trucks, especially on the Cummins, once you get like over 150 to 200,000 miles, you're really questioning that transmission, if it's going to hold up and if it'll get you home. I know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I say about 4 guys with 2nd or 3rd gen Cummins that have had to get their transmissions rebuilt or replaced, and those are not cheap at all. So the main issues with these 6.0s: cooling system and head gaskets. Now the cooling system, I believe these trucks are pretty touchy on what kind of coolant you put in them, and just making sure your overflow bottle cap is within spec. Like I said, I got a new cap for it. I'm planning on flushing out the coolant with the proper coolant sometime this summer. The oil cooler, from what my Torque Pro app has been reading, is pretty good. It's within 5 to 10 degrees higher than the coolant temp, or the oil temp is 5 to 10 degrees higher than the coolant temp, which I believe is, from what I've been reading, is within acceptable specs. The head gasket issue, ARP has those nice head studs. I'm probably going to be doing that over the summer. Just need some warmer weather because this doesn't fit in my garage and I don't have a lift. So I'm going to have to do this in the driveway. So I might make a video on that. But ARP head studs and OEM head gaskets, it seems to be the winning combination here. This truck did have an EGR delete when I got it, so that's pretty cool. I've read stories on 6.0s that are actually put in bigger vehicles, because the 6.0 is an international manufacturer engine, and they put those engines into larger vehicles for like agricultural use or what have you. And because they're a bigger vehicle, they're put into a different emissions category. And I don't think they needed an EGR system on those trucks. So the EGR delete, I believe, seems to be the kind of one of the leading causes of head gasket failures through that domino cascading effect. And with this EGR delete that the previous owner had installed on this truck, so I think this truck has had an EGR delete for a lot of its life. With that EGR delete, I think these head gaskets and stock head bolts will be okay for now, probably okay for a long time. I'm not running any crazy tune on this, just a fairly stock tune with I think a bit of transmission tuning for towing. But because I'm not running a crazy tune on it and I got that EGR delete, I don't think I really even have to replace the head bolts for the foreseeable future. But because it's something that will be a huge selling point when I inevitably have to sell this truck down the road, because I'm not going to keep this truck forever. It's a nice truck, but times change. Got to get those head studs done eventually, and if I do it before the head gaskets blow, then I can pretty much just get away with new head gaskets and throwing the head studs in, and I don't have to check or I don't have to send the heads off to the machine shop. Just a quick check for levelness, and I'll probably be okay. For how big this truck is, like 8,000 pounds empty, it is a decently quick truck. With that variable geometry turbo, I'm hitting 20 pounds of boost within, before 3,000 RPMs, probably a little bit sooner than that. But I mean, with that variable geometry turbo, this truck has some pickup and go. Now, I've heard the 7.3s are a little bit more torquey at the low end, just because it's 7.3 liters of diesel displacement as opposed to this little 6.0. But they have that standard turbo with no variable geometry, so it's a little on the laggy side. So they're not as quick as these 6.0s. I mean, this 6.0 is maybe like stock WRX quick. I mean, which is super impressive for a truck. I have no doubt in my mind that towing all my drift gear and my drift car and the open top trailer will be absolutely no problem for it. I've heard guys say that towing an open top trailer with a car, they don't even feel the trailer behind the truck. That's how powerful and responsive this engine is. And I mean, that's one reason why I picked up this 6.0, is just for its towing capacity. The truck itself is built pretty tough for a pretty big load. The engine tows well, and the transmission is solid on these guys. For what I could afford, this truck fit the bill the best. I can do some mechanic work, so I can take care of those head studs and flush the cooling system and maintain this vehicle so that it lasts a long time. And I feel like it's pretty reliable. The FICM has good voltage right now. It when you turn the key to key on engine off, you can hear the injectors clattering away, and the coolant is clean. The coolant temperatures are good. The engine oil temperatures are good compared to the coolant. This truck that I got was from an older gentleman that used it to haul hay for his horses, and I don't think he was towing like a big old gooseneck worth of hay, but probably like a bumper pull of hay, because he had a hitch on it, a little bumper pull hitch, and it does have a gooseneck in the back, but I don't think he used it very often. So I mean, this guy took care of it. He had receipts for all the work he's been doing. He wasn't afraid to drop $1,000 here, $1,000 there for when this truck needed maintenance. It has no leaks at all. I can park it on the concrete driveway and it'll be clean the next morning, which is that's pretty surprising. Like none of my cars are like that. All my cars leak oil or a little bit of coolant, so that's really nice. So overall, this 6.0 was in my budget. It was well taken care of. It has creature comfort updates that the 7.3 did not. It's a little faster than the 7.3. It after you take care of the head studs and the cooling system, the transmission is solid, the engine is solid, so there's really no weak points after that, as long as you maintain the vehicle. And from what I can tell, all the sensors and the cooling system, like the engine oil temperature, is within range. So I don't foresee any inevitable or catastrophic failure in the future. I do keep an eye on everything when I drive, so I can pinpoint those problems before they happen. So that's kind of a rough overview on why I got the 6.0 as opposed to a 7.3, as opposed to a 6.4, as opposed to a 6.7, or as opposed to a Duramax or Cummins. So I went ahead and I took it to the car wash and I sprayed it off a little bit. I didn't use the brush, I just kind of sprayed all the salt off, so it's not the greatest car wash ever. But yeah, here it is in the daytime, a little cleaner. Oh, here's the tailgate I said I was going to put on. You can see this tailgate is beat, but I got it to work. It still goes up and down. Oh yeah, you can see some of the spray marks. Yeah, I got to go back over there and clean it up a bit. With that crew cab long bed setup, it is just a good looking truck in my opinion. It's not the most perfect truck as far as like dings and dents and paint imperfections go, but I mean that crew cab long bed just looks really good to me. And it was within my price budget, and it drives well. So, I mean, if you're looking at buying a 6.0, I'd say make sure you get one that's been taken care of. Perhaps get a 05 to 07 model that has the updated front suspension, and it has the engine that has the little bits of updates here and there that perhaps make it a little bit better of an engine than the 03, 04 model. So yeah, thanks for watching. Glad you could stick around and hear me ramble on about why I like my 6.0, why I picked it. Sub to the channel if you haven't already. Share this video to your friends. Give the video a like, and I will catch you later.